One of the things that you have to come to terms with is the fact that marriage has a clearly defined order. It sounds simple enough, it sounds basic enough, but I'm saying it because, like I said, I just was kind of just casting my mind back to, you know, a marriage, I guess, over a decade, right, that we've been together. Marriage has a clearly defined order. And if you respect God in your home, He will steer the ship of that home and bless it. Why am I saying this? Is because when you think about the instruction of the Bible, many of us take it as a suggestion. The Bible asks for the wife to be submissive, and it asks for the man to love as Christ loved the church. That is unconditional. So there is a responsibility that the man has, which is to love. And then there is the responsibility that the woman has, which is to submit. And this order is not supposed to be like turned around. It's not supposed to be missed. This is why I say, before you even get married, you need to observe the person with all your eyes open. If you have to get glasses, get the glasses. But your eyes have to be open to identify who this person is. So I'm just trying to share some like lessons that I've learned, you know, in marriage by the help of God. When you allow God have the right of way in your home by respecting His order, you will see that God will bless the home. I know in the years that we've been married, one of the things that I'm thankful to, in the years that we've been married, one of the things that I'm thankful to God for is that this home is not run as a dictatorship. I would hope that no home is run as a dictatorship, although I'm pretty sure that we're familiar with that style. Many of us grew up in that kind of model, right? But thank God this home is not run as a dictatorship. But you see, one of the things that you have to also keep in mind when you find yourself in that situation is that it doesn't erode the order that God puts in place. It does not erode the order that God puts in place. The instruction remains the same. There is supposed to be love given from the head, and then there's supposed to be submission given by the wife. And if you can respect that order, if you can follow it, you will see that God will bless the home. Why do I say this? Marriage is quite an adventure. It's quite a journey. And, you know, especially when you're in the kind of situation where it's like, okay, it's not a dictatorship, we talk about things and everything, there is that possibility that you might think that perhaps you both can share the seats. Like shift for me. Let me sit down there. Let both of us be doing the headship work. God does not change His mind about that. Like, it's set and that's it. And I found that, over the years, that has been my mindset. That's been my approach. And as much as we have discussions, conversations, and things like that, it has never been lost on me that this is the order of things. So yes, we might sit down, we might talk about things, we might deliberate and be like, okay, how do we need to do it? How do we need to do it? But I realize in my head that if we even ever get to a stalemate, one person has the authority to break it, right? And it's not me. That is the truth. One person has the authority to break that stalemate, and it is not me. It is very clear to me that God honors that order. Let me give you an example. There are times when, and I'm thankful for that, Damola will come to me and run an idea by me and be like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And this would happen like back in the day, back in our business, like when he was very much active in business. Damola will come to me, he'll be like, okay, let's do this and let's do that, let's do this. Do you understand that there are times when he sits down, he values my opinion, thank God, right? Which is the reason he asks me, and then I will give it. Why? Because I was asked. But he decides that, okay, this is what we're going to do. Why? Because it's like, well, here are the facts I'm presenting you. He has his own facts. He's taking everything. He's looking it over and he's thinking, what do we do? And he eventually makes a decision. Why am I saying this? The fact that someone is the head means that they have the ultimate responsibility to, like I said, break that tie. But it does not mean that it will be every time that they're like all Superman and all of that. But at no point in time are you given the right to step into that office on their behalf. At no point in time are you given the right to step into that office on their behalf and be like, okay, clearly you don't know what is going on. Clearly you don't know how this thing should be done. So let me enter now and drive this thing. No. It will never be that. And I'm saying this, and it's seeming like it's a basic thing, but do you understand that this thing has eaten up many marriages? because people refuse to obey the order that God has put in place. It might sound very foolish, and it might sound very strange, and it might prompt you to log off the meeting right now. But the one thing I always remind myself of when we get into those kind of situations is this: I chose to be under the leadership of this man. If what he has decided to do is not quite how I would have wanted to do it, guess what? All I can do is give my opinion. All I can do is share based on him wanting to factor me into this. But ultimately, guess what? It's his decision. And it wouldn't be all the time that you feel like, oh, this is the best decision. But in those moments, you are not given the right to become the head. The best you can do at that point in time is learn to work with his own head. Learn to work with his own head as opposed to you taking over to be the head. You will not win in your home. You will not win in your marriage by wanting to knock someone out of the seats that they occupy and you go sit in there instead. So what you do is you learn to work with his head. This is why I went through the basics initially. Because when you marry someone who is not submitted to God, well, you are in our prayers. You learn to work with his head. There are times when we'll have that conversation and I'll say, well, this is how it's, and I'll be like, well, I've decided, and this, and I'm like, well, good for you. And instead of sitting there arguing, you won't listen. Oh, I just go and meet God. God, this man has decided this thing. And me, I know, as much as I know my name, that this is not where we should be going. Can you please intervene? Can you tell, you know? And once I give it to God like that, I'm willing to let my hands go off of it. Even if I'm still seeing, and you know the funny thing is this might sound very ridiculous, right? But there was one thing that happened, I think, when we were still dating. I don't know if we were dating or we were married very early at the time. We were driving in the car. And Damola is the one driving, of course, and I'm in the driver's seat, no, in the passenger seat beside him. And we're driving. You know how it is when there's traffic, right? And then, there's cars that are close to you and everything. And there was a point in time, he's been doing the driving the whole time. But then I felt like, you know what? I feel like he's not seeing the road. And I'm like, hey, look at, I just made a noise, oh, look at that car. And the honest truth is, he had seen that car. He wasn't going to hit it. But the noise that I made actually put more confusion into what he was doing. And then he kind of started, because he lost his focus for it, because he didn't realize it was and then and I remember that day specifically, because it was in future, please don't do that. I'm driving, I'm seeing. If you have something to show me, maybe you can, but don't be like, hey, look, and I can remember that because we're very young, and I was thinking, what kind of thing is that? What kind of thing is that? If I'm seeing it, that's what I was thinking. It was not necessarily what I said, but that's what I was thinking. But you see, many years down the line, I've realized that that singular guidance that just happened because we were driving in a car, it produced much results in our marriage. So I understand that it's not my responsibility to topple the order, to push him out of the driver's seat and take over and be like, since you cannot see the car, guess what? He can likely see the car. And he's likely not going to hit the car. But the simple fact that you can't make room for that leadership to find expression, you will pay for it in your home eventually. I'm telling you. I'm just sharing this as little bits of wisdom that you need to find a way to incorporate. If you respect the order that God created, God in turn will keep that home. God in turn will bless that home. God in turn will steer the ship. So yes, I have a thought about how something should be done, this and that. But guess what? I can sit down there and be arguing. I can sit down there and be causing issues. I can sit down there and be insisting. I can sit down there and be tearing down his leadership. Or I can go meet God, who is his own head, and tell him my thoughts on what it is. Tell him my thoughts on how I feel about these things, and let God drive it. I'll say something right now, and it's going to be, well, I hope it's, let me just put it this way. I want to also let you know that there are times when you will take that thing to God, and God even agrees with you that, no, you are absolutely right. But guess what? God is not going to stop that husband, that man, from doing that thing. The danger with not realizing that God is doing a very specific work with him that is different from what he's doing with you is that you will feel the need to step into that thing and direct it and manipulate it and turn it in your direction. And you do not understand that you are causing that man to miss something very powerful that God is wanting him to learn. Because guess what? You're not the Holy Spirit. The person who can teach things better than you ever can is the Holy Spirit. So there may be those decisions that the man is saying, okay, this is how I'm going to do. And you feel like this is not how we should do it. Then you go to God. God, this is not how we should do it. And I know that you know. God, tell him. And he actually does not. And he allows the man to do it the way that he has taught it. Why? Because there is something that he wants that man to learn. And he's not going to learn it because you nagged. He's not going to learn it because you were the one who was insisting. He's going to learn it because God put him in a place where he can learn directly from him. God put him in a place where he can hear him clearly and understand what he's saying to him. The best you can do is, like I said, partner with his head. But it's not for you to take over as the head. This thing seems small, and I don't know whose marriage needs this wisdom, but take this home. Learn to get into a place where you are at peace with how God is driving your home. If God is the head of your husband, and your husband is your head, trust that God will not drive that ship into the wilderness or the bus into the wilderness or whatever the case may be. You learn to leave things with God. You learn to leave things with God. When you're not, there yet and you're not as wise, you feel that if you speak enough, if you nag enough, if you harass enough, they will make a decision based on what you said. And you don't understand that you are causing people to miss out on their own personal dealing with God. You are causing people to miss out on their own personal progress with God. Why? Because you have decided that things must happen they must happen your way. They must follow what you say because you are so smart, you know everything. But it's one of the things that I'm always thankful to God for. I sit down and I get in a place of peace. If this man decides that we're still forging forward, guess what? I'm the first to pack my bags and follow. At that point in time, my head is in it like, okay, this is where we're going. Like, that's it. It should be good enough for you. You have to get to that place. If you find that you are still wanting to, you listen, enter God's rest. Enter God's rest, even in your home. You shouldn't have to fight and carry everything. Enter God's rest. You take it to God. God either changes his mind or he doesn't. Whatever the case may be, it is okay for you. And the moment that direction is, when you find yourself working against, like you have pulled yourself outside of leadership, understand that you expose your own self. I don't even know why I'm staying here this long, but I just feel that it's something some people need to understand. Because when we talk about restoration of marriage, sometimes, like I said, this thing is not deliverance. It's some very simple things, some very basic things that you need to understand. There are some things that you might be seeing in your marriage 8 years into the marriage that are upsetting you, and you can't be mad. Why? Because 2 years into it, when God wanted to teach that man something, when God wanted to bring that man into that dealing, you obstructed it. You obstructed it by nagging, by manipulating, by forcing, by pushing until he did things your way. And he missed that class. He missed that learning period with the Spirit. You know why I'm saying that? Because this is something that if they don't tell you, you will not understand it. If they don't tell you, you will not understand it. 2 years into the marriage, God is building this head. He's building this leader. You have to realize that you yourself, you've not submitted before. He has not led a marriage before. And so God is teaching both of you. So you sit down in your class and let him sit in his. And God is teaching him. God is growing him. God is leading him. And he's doing the same with you. But you have to interfere. Because you know. And you know what? Why won't you know? You are supposed to be a helpmate. You're not supposed to be a figurehead. You're supposed to be smart. But what you're not is you're not supposed to be the head. You're not supposed to be God. There are things that you will not have to deal with in your marriage 10 years, 20 years, I don't know, however many years, if you would allow that process to play out 3 years in. You don't like it, but it's God's process. It's God's process, and you let it be. I think about things that happen very, very, very early on in our marriage, but this is maybe, it's not even year one of the marriage. And it played out, and I was like, oh, this is how I feel, this is how I don't feel. And it was like, you know what, we're moving forward. And I said, fine. From that point on, what's my own assignment in this thing, then we'll do it. And it played out the way that I had said. But guess what? At no point in time did I not say it. Listen. When you realize that you are working together as one, there's no did I not say no. Okay, what's the next thing? That person is in a class, is in a leader's class. You are in the class learning to submit. So at that point in time, you are failing your class and you are causing somebody else to miss their own lesson. Then now, 8 years, 10 years down the line, this thing is still showing up because it was never developed in that person because you interfered. I feel that this thing is too pointed. It's too specific. It's talking to someone too particularly. And I don't know who that is. But please, I'm just saying this. Maybe there are older marriages here. Maybe there are younger marriages here. But I want you to understand this. If you respect the order that God puts in families, in homes, God will in turn look after your home. He will protect it. You will never be steered wrong. You will never go wrong. As long as you just let God lead, as long as you let God direct, you will not miss it. You will not go wrong. God will tell you at each point in time, do you know what this is where many of us have to learn. And I'm saying this because I feel that you guys are very clear on the fact that I connect a lot with the women. So when I speak, I typically speak to them, but I know that there's stuff that you are hearing as well as a man on the call. It's not just a woman who is in training to learn to submit. It is a man is also in training to learn to be a leader. How well do you use the resources that God equips you with? A leader is not a leader except he learns to hire for his weakness. So you're not a leader because you ensure that everybody else under you, is not as good as you, is not as smart as you. That was something that someone said recently. I don't even remember where I heard it. You hire for your weakness. So knowing that this person that you have brought into your life to be a helpmate has some value, has some things, you learn to listen to it. You learn to utilize it. You learn to maximize their value in your life. So that's your own this thing as a leader. But I just felt the need to emphasize this. There are young marriages that will be saved if they could just accept this wisdom. The reason why we don't want this to happen is because we have not yet submitted to God's will. Is it God's will that we should lose that 10,000? Perhaps. Is it God's will that, maybe it is okay with God for you to lose it at that time because what he sees in you people is beyond that. What he sees in you people is way more than that. But you are so pressed about this. I can't let this man do like this and do like that. We're going to do it. Let it be. I've learned to sit down and be comfortable in it. And sometimes it's even that comfort, that willingness to follow wherever your leader is taking you people, that even helps with the confidence to make the best decisions for you. But when you are forcing and pushing and nagging, you also cause the leader to know they can't think straight, just like that incident with the car, where I was like trying to step in there to be like, oh, watch that car. Meanwhile, they saw the car. Meanwhile, he saw the car. And I'm like, let me just enter. No. You sit down and find rest in God. Find rest in God. I usually say that thing, and it's almost as, I say it almost as if I'm joking, but I'm not actually joking. I'm like, wherever it's taking us, that's where I'm going. Wherever it's taking us, it is good for me. I'm going there. Oh, I don't care. I'm going there. Wherever I say this is that direction, that's it. Why? Because that's the leader that I chose. That's the head I submitted to. It's my duty to pray to God for him and ensure that, he's in line with God. That is enough. I'm not in his position. Okay.